So, hi, and this is a Q&A with Claire about this collaborative project we made, creating a class, like two sister classes, actually.
Yeah.
So, yes, in this Q&A, we will go through some questions that popped during our collaborative process about Procreate and Procreate Dreams, how we went on creating this whimsical illustration and animation together. We try to answer every question we had in mind, but if you have any other request or question, be sure to let us know, and we'll be happy to reply. Yeah, then let's jump into it.
Okay.
I would say we can start off with a sort of recap of this collaboration and this project.
hmm
And one good question could be for both of us what we learned from this collaboration, what was, the highlight or even the struggles.
As I mentioned in my Q&A, I think for me the highlight was seeing someone else take my work and then turn it into movement. Like I cannot explain. I feel like it was so cool to see, and it actually motivated me to try animation more myself. And I loved that process. Like it was so fun, and I really enjoyed trying some of the animation that you did. Try it myself, and seeing how easy it is. Because I was like, I cannot do this, but I could, and it was so easy. And I really liked the first one I tried was the spider to animate that, and it was a really good feeling to be able to do that. That was really cool. The most satisfying moment for me was to see my illustration in movement.
This,
Like yeah, that was like magical. And I tried some of your animations, like when you were actually doing them in a moment, and I loved how easy it was. I was like, there's no way I can do this. Like Procreate Dreams is still a mystery to me. But I was able to do it like under 2 minutes, like to animate the spider, for example. And that was an incredible feeling to be able to do that. So huge highlight for me.
yeah, this already for me, this is, it's a great feedback, first of all. And then I think that's what I like about this kind of collaborations. It, as an animator, it makes me very happy to hear that you loved it, and I like to kind of interpret your illustration and try to bring it to life. I like how we both brought something to this project, and I find it interesting that you said you wanted to animate, to see, to try, and I actually also I'm very tempted to do my own illustration now,
hmm
following your class, and then bring it to life. So I like how this like crisscross pollination really is
Yeah.
working, and I hope this would also inspire the students the same way,
Yeah.
because it's really nice if you're an animator to test the illustration part, or if you're an illustrator to jump into the animation.
Absolutely. Making
Yeah.
something from scratch. And then, I mean, in general, with illustration, it's really fun to make something out of nothing. But then to make it move is a whole other level. Um,
Mm.
and even if you think you cannot do it, like this is actually possible, but it's also your skill. Like I was never interested in animation before I took your classes. And that showed me that I can do really small interventions and do it really on a really small scale and still feel like it's a huge accomplishment and make something really
Yeah, yeah.
fun.
Animation doesn't have to be like a full Disney movement and overlaps and walk cycles.
Because we don't have time for all that anyway. So yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But I wanted to add one takeaway from this collaboration for me is about communication, because I think every time we collaborate, and as an animator, I know this, every time in a client commission or anytime really, you have to collaborate with someone
hmm
uh, in a creative environment, but not necessarily. It's really important to have a clear communication, to be able to communicate, exchange, needs and information. And I found this very, very useful. Yeah, as a reminder, but also to learn even more.
Absolutely. And it's always good to get feedback as well. Like
Yeah.
to work with someone else. Because as I said, what was a struggle for me, sometimes it just happens. Color, like it just wasn't working. And just to have you give me ideas, inspiration, to make this work for both of us. Like that was huge. Like it got me out of it. And otherwise, maybe I would have gotten out of it myself eventually. But sometimes it just ends there. Sometimes when I get stuck with an illustrator, I just leave it and it's like, well, that's it. I can't figure this out. This is a dead
Yeah.
end. I mean, when you work with someone else, it's not necessarily so.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's always enriching. I also find it collaborating somehow humbling because it makes you step back a bit and be open for the other person input or skills even.
Mm,
In animation, I have this a lot when I work with a bigger team, and maybe I'm the animation director, like the one who wrote the story, but maybe it doesn't mean that I'm good at every step. And
mm.
I love to let people in and say, okay, you are a storyboarder. It means you can make storyboards better than me. And I trust you. And I want you to let you in the process and into my story to bring something extra.
Yeah,
So I like this about collaborations. They really make you feel humble in the sense like I cannot do everything.
yeah,
And I'm happy to accept help.
yeah, absolutely. So basically, this is a call for other students to find a Skillshare buddy and try and do it together, maybe.
That was very cool.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Somebody needs to be the first. So, and any questions in the discussions post, please, because we're here to help. So, if you
Mhm.
also just need feedback, like we're
Right.
around somewhere. So,
Yeah, actually, it would be very cool if our discussion section would become a place where students match and find
yes,
someone to work with.
we'll make it happen. Let's make it happen. Yes,
Mhm.
that'd be very cool. This is a good question for you because we kind of discussed this, but what excites you about bringing illustrated objects to life?
Yeah, it's a really good one. As I said, maybe it's a bit of the animator's point of view because we said the animators is very collaborative. I like as an animator to jump into other people's worlds, really.
Mm,
So when you receive an illustration or a concept even from a client, you're trying to bring to life their vision. And I like this part of my job sometimes to try to understand what you had in mind with this cozy illustration, for example, and see like how can I make it real.
mhm.
And so, first of all, yeah, I really love this part of the process where I kind of try to step into your shoes and imagine how can we make this alive. Yeah, and then there is maybe the nerdy part of it, which is how to actually make it happen. So I have this object or this layer, I want to get that result, how can I get there? Yeah, so for example with the steam, there is I noticed that your layer was in opacity, I think around 58%.
Mm,
And I thought, oh, this is actually very nice. She used opacity, and the steam, as we know, is quite transparent. And so in the movement, I need to create a loop. It needs to disappear. And so I thought, well, I could animate it like frame by frame as I did, but also use the opacity as an animation tool to make it disappear. And so in the
mm.
class, we animated the steam so that it does animate like the disappearing a little bit, this kind of cloud. But at the same time, I animated the opacity as well to make it completely, go away. And I like this kind of finding the right trick that works with the style of the illustrator,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. I think
So
that's so cool to see like every object is a different type of animation, I guess. I mean, you cover these in your class that are different types of like
mm,
interventions, right? Um, but I find that so fascinating to see how you have to think of like, okay, we've got this object, what is the movement, and then the technical aspect of that. It's so fascinating.
yeah,
And I think that's why
yeah, that's
animation
I
is
think
so
that's why,
interesting.
yeah, that's why I love animation. I think is, as I called it, nerdy. This nerdy side of finding a solution, because there are many. I think there is
Yeah.
not one way. There is not just one way to get a result. And so you have this creative moment where you have to come up with a different way to animate a different object. And for example, with the Steam, that was that way. And as you mentioned, it's true. Procreate Dreams has these different ways of animating something. Could be frame by frame, or there is a performance mode, which is awesome, and only in Procreate that I know of. And exactly, so it's up to you as an animator to decide, what can I do? Or what tool can I use in order to reach that result?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that part.
It's a perfect blend of artistic and technical, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's really creative because no one else would do it exactly like you. There are also other in animation, there are so many softwares, and every software you use is going to give you a different result. So I like that part too. You can be very unique with your animation.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So how to keep the look and style of the illustrator? This is connected to what we just said, because as an animator, especially if it's not your illustration, you want to mimic as much as possible that style. And of course, if you don't have to redraw anything, it's easier because you just move the objects that are already drawn in the layers. But in our case, we did redraw a little bit. It was not a crazy animation, so I didn't have to redraw the full character. For example, if I had to animate the cat jumping on the shelf, I would have redrawn the full character many times. But in this case, for example, we had the flame that is hand drawn, or the steam, right? And as an animator, or when you approach the animation plan, I start thinking, first of all, brushes, because of course, they are very important and necessary. The moment you want to emulate the look, you have to retrace or redraw something, and it needs to be exactly the same. And in this case, it's perfect. Procreate allows you to drag and drop any custom brush that you have or made or used in Procreate, and drag it in Procreate Dreams. And we did that in the class, and we also did the same for the color swatches, which is super useful.
Yeah.
So if the illustrator, or you yourself as an illustrator, prepare for yourself that, like brushes and colors, makes it even easier than to simply drop them in the Procreate Dreams project and use them. Well, I would say this is an extra brainstorming moment, but I thought also, in general, the mood, like we have this cozy scene, this cozy setting.
Yeah.
So when planning the animation, I thought for sure we don't need anything catching too much the attention. Also, in terms of timeline, I knew it would have been a big loop of a couple of seconds. In this case, it turned out to be 10 seconds loop. And I want every element to be balanced. So I cannot, or at least it was not in my plan, I cannot have one element or one character which is the hero of the scene, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a choice. It could be that there are little subtle movements, and then the cat does something crazy, jumps or whatever. But in our case, I really wanted to keep the style of the illustration, which was on the same level. Every element, there is no hero in the piece, right? And so I tried to mirror the illustration mood, in the sense that it was this big composition, and also the animation will be a big composition. When you animate a piece and maybe the illustration is very graphic, then the animation could also be less realistic, right? More graphic as well.
Like in the movement. Yeah.
Yeah, if the illustration is very realistic, maybe then the animation has to be realistic as well.
So a bit more like smooth and
but also, like, in terms of actions, imagine very realistic character, like a human character, right? That has really like proportions that are close to real. And then on the other hand, maybe a very cartoony character, like one of those Cartoon Network, very edgy, very exaggerated. The animation, then it's more makes sense to be exaggerated or more graphic or more snappy if the
Yeah,
character
yeah,
is
yeah.
the same. Would be a bit weird and with a bit of a dissonance, I think, if the character is very realistic and then animation is very cartoony, or the other way around.
It reminds me of your walk cycle class, where if you're animating a little funny cartoon character, for example, the movement can be a bit squashed. It's very exaggerated movement, which is very like quirky and it's cute. But with
Yeah.
yeah, imagine with like a more realistic person, they cannot be bouncing around like this. It has to be more natural, I guess.
Yeah. And I think then it's up to you to decide how squishy and how stretchy your character or your walk wants or needs to be.
Yeah.
It's a soft, like a very thin line, but I think in this case, particularly for me, was interpreting the style and act, accordingly.
I think it worked really well because in the end, I mean, we wanted to go for like a whimsical, cozy feel, and the little animations show that even more. Like they're very calming, they're soft, and they're like again like finding these little objects. Like you still have to keep looking at like what's moving, and yeah, it's like a bit of a hidden object game.
Yeah, I like that. When you rewatch it and you notice something more. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Mm.
it's really cute.
And again, about the whimsical and the mood, that's perfect example are the sparkles that we already mentioned in the other Q&A. Sparkles they were there in the illustration, and they are the best way to kind of give this bit also Christmassy or like mystical vibe.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, it's cute.
it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, I love that as well because that was like we said in the other Q&A, that was an intention. Like I just drew those for, for cohesiveness, for the general vibe of the design. And then to see that you animated those as well was so fun. And now it makes so much sense. That's something that I didn't even think of because I'm not an animator, so I illustrate as an illustrator, and you think about another layer. Sorry. And you think about another layer on top of that, like how things work in movement.
Yeah, I actually, because you're talking about this, I'm going to connect to the next question, which is
The keyframes, right?
yeah, exactly. I find it very interesting, and I had a sort of aha moment while I was working on this project to verbalize this, and I'm going to try now. Really realized how we receive an illustration with certain poses, and the objects and the elements, they are in a certain position and they have a certain pose. And I find it interesting that as an animator, those poses not very often are actually key poses of the animation. And so I find it interesting to compare the illustration poses versus the animation poses that are actually part of the movement. So in animation, as we know, there are such things as key poses. There are the key moment of an action. And when you have an illustration, there are, of course, some poses, but they're not taught for the movement. Those illustration poses, they are single frames that contain already the whole movement or the whole storytelling kind of. So I'm going to give some examples so that it makes it more clear. The steam. You gave me the illustration with this very nicely drawn cloud of steam coming out of the teapot. And as I was about to animate it, I wondered, okay, will this be one of the keyframes? Will this be one of the frames at all? Of course, I don't have to start from that one because the steam needs to appear. So I start from an empty frame, and then slowly the steam will come out of the teapot. So for sure, it's not the first keyframe. And maybe it's not even a frame. And this made me realize how illustration and animation, as we said, are similar, but they're also different. The illustrations images are designed to feel alive, but not to move. And the animator's task is to take it and think, how can I use this, or how can I translate it in a actual frame? First of all, this, as I said, this cloud was very nicely drawn, right? Like a nice, almost symmetric or like very clean cloud. And in the animation, I think I used it in the end. It's part of the animation, but in animation doesn't necessarily have to be so clean, because there is this movement of the steam, and so the cloud can be more squashed or more the frames single, like frame by frame, if you take one of them, doesn't have to be necessarily beautiful.
Yeah.
It just has to work in the sequence. And this I find it very interesting. And another example, which is maybe helpful, is a job I did in the past where I had to animate a juggler. And the illustrator gives me the piece, like the final illustration, where there is this beautiful juggler juggling 5 balls at the same time. And the illustration was very graphic, and the composition was very nice and symmetric. And the 5 balls were positioned in a very graphic way, like in a circle and very equally distant. Beautiful for an illustration. But the moment I had to animate, I quickly realized this would have never been a frame, because an animator has to think about physics and the actual movement, and it was not possible to make a realistic or believable movement with 5 balls in the air in this circle position. If you juggle, I had to watch a bunch of YouTube videos of jugglers. There was no way to have 5 balls at the same time in the air like that. I mean, you could, but it would be super unnatural to have these 5 balls moving like this, right?
Yeah.
But that's not how juggling works. And this, I think, is a great example of the differences between animation and illustration, and sometimes those a bit of clashes of trying to convey what the illustrator had in mind, but also make it possible. So I thought about it during this project, and I thought it could be a very interesting point for the students to keep in mind, especially, let's say, when we tackle this small loop or this small project. You don't have to start with that exact drawing or that exact frame. Maybe that is part of the animation. Maybe it's in the middle. Maybe it's in the end. Yes. So to recap, what I wanted to say and what I learned with this project is that, as we know, illustration and animation are different. They are similar, but they are different, and especially they have different goals. And the illustration is there to have an impact with the still image, and it's not thinking about motion. And usually the pose that the illustrator chose, actually the pose the illustrator creates, is usually a mid-action pose. It's a sweet spot that describes the motion, but not necessarily a frame. And the animation has to think about the timing and the physics. And so when the animator has to bring something to life, they are animating toward the intention of the illustration, I would say, trying to bring the spirit of the illustration to life. And to do that, they have to kind of reverse engineer the physics to create a believable movement.
Yeah. So basically, like one static image in illustration is not the same as a keyframe, because I'm thinking of a static image and that conveys the design. But for you, it is multiple frames that then make the image, basically.
Yeah.
Like a puzzle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny because it's like the animators think in time and the illustrators think in the still moment.
Yeah, which is, I think, why it can be difficult for an illustrator to understand the animation process, because you're thinking about the static image of like, okay, and then that's my first one, and then I keep going with other movements as frames. But yeah, you need to think in a different way. But that's why Procreate Dreams is such a good solution, because it makes it a bit easier to understand, because you can move things directly instead of always having to work with keyframes. So I think that's why trying all these different objects, like trying all these different types of animations is a really good exercise.
Yeah, I agree. And it's true that really Procreate and Procreate Dreams kind of create a bridge between the two worlds. And
Yeah.
I find it fascinating.
And I honestly
Mm.
didn't even know that you could import colors, brushes, your whole files, like everything can just go directly into Dreams, like with no problem. So
Yeah,
it's perfect.
yeah. I think this is a key a feature that no other software has like that. So
Hmm.
smooth.
Yeah.
One of the questions we have noted down was, do I need to animate every object, or is it okay if just one moves? And connected to that, the second question I think is, do I need to understand complex animation principles to start animating? I think they can go together.
Yeah.
And this makes me think also of the podcast episode we recorded some time ago, which is on YouTube, because there we also mentioned how it's totally fine, and in some cases even better if the animation is subtle,
Mm.
and there's no need for crazy skills or crazy actions which are complex to create
Yeah.
in order to make an illustration appealing and alive. And as we mentioned then, and I'm going to repeat this because I really believe it, the simplest thing that is so effective and has a great impact is the blink. You could
Mm.
have a complete still image, but if you, or a character not moving, but if you blink the eyes, it suddenly comes to life. Uh, it's really magical. As also humans and animals, we are, the moment we see something blinking or we see eyes everywhere, and the moment we see a blink, this becomes instantly alive.
Yeah.
So this would be my first tip, to just learn how to animate a blink, which are three drawings, super simple, open
Yeah.
eyes, like half closed and closed. And this gives great motion already to the picture. And another thing I wanted to mention here that we used in the class was to animate a sort of noise or texture. And I liked
Hmm.
that earlier in the other Q&A, you mentioned the noise to kind of get away of the flat look. And I didn't know this when I animated, because now we are having the Q&A at the end. But it's funny because then I also thought the same. I thought I want to make the whole piece a little more alive. At the end of the whole animation, when once we animated every single element, it
Hmm.
was working fine and it's very beautiful. But then I thought I can give an extra step and an extra idea for the students to try, which is to give a bit of motion or to give a more alive feeling to the whole piece. So we have some elements moving, but some others
Hmm.
are completely flat or like completely still. And so what I did was to use the texture and on top of everything and give a little bit of a
Oh,
move.
yeah.
So that gives this boiling effect, or like this yeah, noise effect, we can call it.
Yeah.
uh, and even though not every single pixel of the illustration is animated, this gives to the final video a live feeling. Otherwise, some parts of the illustration or the animation would be still
Hmm.
like a proper illustration, which is fine. I think I mentioned it in the class. It was a test. It's not necessary to have an animated noise on top of it, but it gives an extra layer. And I
Hmm.
think that could be also something people can try if they want to bring their illustration to life, and they have maybe a simple blink. Maybe a noise on top can help to enhance it.
Yeah. I was also going to say, I think that all of these types of animation that you added, they can all apply to different projects, right? Because the texture on top, now that I know that, I wrote it down. I'm like, I'm going to try this and other stuff too. And for example, the blinking of the eye, if you ever want to do like a Halloween illustration and you have like a bunch of eyes in a jar or something, make them blink. I've done it a couple of times and it's so fun. Even when you have no animation skills, that's like the easiest thing you can do. And for example, these are all things that can apply to other types of animation, like the spider moving, that could be any kind of, apply to any kind of movement up and down, left to right. The
Yeah.
steam could be, well, you have a class on making steam come from a mug, for example. That could be any kind of steam or clouds, I think. Clouds in that way. Um, the movement of the mouse. I'm thinking of all these kind of types of movement that you can apply to so many other things as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I love, thanks for mentioning this because I truly love this approach and is something I really believe, and I hope I can pass it on to my students every time I make a class. I don't want to just show a skill or like a trick that you can use for that specific project, but hopefully opening possibilities so that you can mix and match all of those things
Yeah,
and use them in future projects, collide different skills and put them together. So
yeah,
yeah, ideally, it's a toolbox of different tricks that you can then learn and use whenever you want or whenever you need. I
yeah,
agree. It opens so many possibilities, right? I'm
yeah.
really now very excited to do my own whimsical shelf, you know?
Yeah, I've only done, well, I've tried a couple of your animations, but I want to do the full thing again and like get a good feel for it. And then I think that would make me feel so much more comfortable in Procreate Dreams as well. And I'm already thinking of like um different takes on this project. Like you could do another season, you could do like a summer bookshelf, you could do an autumn one and a Halloween one. Like the possibilities are endless just with this type of illustration and movement, basically.
Exactly. I was thinking the same. I love this format because it allows you to do it over and over, but completely different and try new things and improve. I was also thinking, I really actually want to do it. After we did this collaboration, I thought I want to do the same, but with stamps. I saw that
Mm,
you also illustrated these amazing stamps on the facade of or on a shop window
yeah,
in Madrid. And I was thinking how cool it would be to have a sort of illustrated like frames of different
yeah,
stamps and animate them. It would
absolutely.
be so cool.
I think we even talked about this when we were brainstorming this idea. Um, of in general, right? Having not just one big piece, but an illustration that is made up of different little objects. We
Yeah,
decided on a bookshelf with objects, but we were even thinking, what if it was
right.
frames or what if it was stamps? And I think
Yeah,
initially the cat was going to be inside a frame and like popping
right.
up or something, or like blinking, but like a frame of a cat. And I
Yeah.
still really want to do that. Something with stamps or frames, like that sounds so fun.
Yeah, stamps or frame, as you said, would be very nice, like a wall of all different frames with different shapes.
Yeah,
And in that case, I also like the idea of the frame because it allows you to bring into the shelf setting something that could be outside or a different scale. So for the students, if they feel like trying it again, or yeah, it doesn't have to be an object that sits on a shelf. Could also be a picture of a lion, and the lion is blinking,
yeah.
and this opens so many possibilities.
Once you've tried all those different animations that you've made everyone do, I think you can apply those to so many different types of movements and topics. It works so well. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love this. It
Hmm.
was a great collaboration.
Yeah, same. It was awesome. I want to do another one. Now I'm like so excited about it.
Yeah, me too. Let's start brainstorming for the
Yeah,
next one.
exactly.
Yeah, overall, I feel like it was a great test also for us and a great collaboration.
Hmm.
And on this note, I want to say one more time that really I feel collaborating with other creatives, also different fields, it's always a great experience and opens up so many doors. So I would
Yeah,
just recommend, not just in this specific case, a Skillshare, or but in general, to be open to collaborate with other people. Yeah, I just recommend it.
absolutely. I mean, just to be able to work with someone else, get feedback, and work with someone else in a different field is a huge a bonus, a huge plus. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, with this Q&As, we tried to cover everything that came really into our heads. But if there are any other questions, of course, we're very happy to reply and to continue this conversation. So just be sure to write it down in the comments or in the discussion on Skillshare. And we will be very happy to go on.
Yeah, we'll be here.
Yes.
And if people are looking for people to collaborate with, right? Let's do that in the discussions post as well. We mentioned that in my Q&A. Like if you're looking to work with someone, do like illustration, animation, do a Procreate file, like an illustration together, find your people.
Yeah.
And, you can do it here.
Yeah, let's make the discussion section a good matching place where you can find your body for collaboration. I like that. Okay. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
It was
Awesome.
great.
Well done.
Okay.